Hey guys, the Explorer 4 here. Welcome back to some more reviews, and welcome back to the Wes Craven review marathon that I'm doing. I'm going through the entire career of Wes Craven, and we're getting to the second film that he made that wasn't porn. Because in between this and Last House, he made a movie called The Fireworks Woman, which, yeah, we won't be discussing that one on this series of videos. But up next, we got The Hills Have Eyes. 6.3 on IMDb and came out in 1977. It's always weird because I always think it came out in like 1975. Because 72 to 77, that's a big gap to not make a movie. And so I always just assumed this came out in the very mid-70s. But it came out in 1977. Of course, became a very infamous movie, and following up Last House on the Left, I think this is a very well done attempt by Wes Craven to not only create a whole brand new story, but to also change the environment, change this, just change the way he even made this movie. It completely was a different style of filmmaking. I mean, it's similar in ways in the way that they went out and shot this movie on location and had to work with a low budget and everything. This does feel a bit bigger, a bit larger than The Last House on the Left. It feels like it was a lot more at risk with this movie. And I'm actually curious, because obviously over the years, this movie's become considered a classic by most people. But I'm kind of curious if it's considered a box office hit. A budget of $230,000, and it doesn't really say how much money it made. Which I'm assuming they want me to get IMDb Pro, which I'm not going to. So that's a shame. I can't even see how much money this movie made. But it was a big hit as far as people talking about it, becoming a very infamous horror movie. And like I said, it's one hell of a follow-up to Last House on the Left. And it's kind of ironic that I'm doing this review right now because, this is way in the past. Y'all are seeing this in the future. So, way back when I filmed this in August something, I picked up and ordered The Hills of Eyes on 4K. And it hasn't arrived yet. So, I don't have anything to show for that. I rewatched it on Shudder. And it's going to be kind of ironic doing that. Because I was like, when I ordered it, I was like, well, why didn't I just wait till it came in the mail? But I'd already watched it, so it's kind of like, at least the next time I watch it'll be in 4K, and I want to see some features, because for the longest time, the only way I had The Hills Have Eyes was this really just plain Anchor Bay DVD with nothing on it. It might have had a commentary track if I was lucky to even have that. I think I still have the case lying around here somewhere. The disc isn't even in the case anymore, so it's just basically a plain old DVD that I used to have. But I did grow up with this movie. This is a film that I watched at a very young age. I do remember at a flea market I came across this movie, and the DVD that I had was a sort of similar to the poster of the film, with Michael Berryman on the front cover. All of the fonts a bit different and the background's a bit different. But it struck me as just looking interesting, because I was like, okay, what's this? The Hills of Eyes, a very catchy title. And at the time, the remake was a big thing, and I wasn't allowed to see the remake because of just how crazy and violent and gory it was. And so for a while, it was kind of like one of those things where I'm like, man, do I even buy the remake? Because I had always seen it at flea markets and movie stores for cheap, but I was like, man, I'm not allowed to watch Hills of Eyes. I was always told not to watch it. So eventually, as I got older, I did pick it up and watch it. But the original, I was like, okay, this is the classic. This is the original. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to watch this. And yeah, I grew up with it. It's a movie that I watched plenty of times as a kid, and not real young, but around 11 or 12, I was watching this movie a lot, and I really loved it then. And this is still one of my favorite Wes Craven movies. I think it's still up there in the top tier for his career. That kind of rhymed, but it's still up there. I think this movie is still excellent. I would say it is up there with Last House on the Left as far as just having a lot of elements that I enjoy, having a lot of respect for what Wes Craven had to go through to get this movie made, how much this crew went through to make this film, and just for the history of this horror film and how much of an impact it had. And of course, it would be referenced in The Evil Dead, where in the basement there's a torn poster of The Hills of Ice. And Wes Craven and Sam Raimi would constantly do that. They'd pay tribute and say thanks to each other and give little nods in each of their films. So I always found that pretty fun. But the story is a classic one. You've got a family heading out to California, and they are just on their way through the desert, and they pass by a gas station who tells the guy there tells them to stay on the road and don't travel off of it. They basically do. They end up making a really poor decision and veering off the road, off the main path, and of course they get stuck out in the desert. And they realize that there are people living in the hills named, like, Jupiter and Mars and Mercury and basically Pluto, Michael Berryman, who's like the one mutant. I don't know if they're considered mutants. They're like inbred cannibals. And I think that's the big difference with this movie and the remake. Is this one, it's like inbred cannibals. The remake is more like mutated people. I don't even know. They might be cannibals in that movie. I can't even remember. I think they might be cannibals in the remake. But here it's a bit different. Michael Berryman is the one that you see on all the covers. But it basically becomes family versus family. And there's an attack on this RV that this family's in, and people start dying. And the baby gets taken, and the baby, of course, the mom is killed, and the father has to try to find the baby again, and they got to figure out, all these people are dead, they took all of our supplies, and how are we going to survive the night? And that's basically the rest of the movie, is them trying to figure out what are they going to do. They have these two dogs, Beauty and Beast. One of them gets killed, Beauty, in a very violent and vicious way. And then there's this awesome idea that Beast becomes this sort of Avenger type character, which I thought Wes Craven did a lot better in this movie at balancing the fact that it is a silly idea on paper. Like, on paper, the idea this dog is going around, being a badass and killing these people off in stealth mode, not getting hurt in the process, and kind of having a mind of its own to where it's so aware that it can sneak up on people and stuff. Basically a dog version of Rambo. It's just going around and killing these people off. And on paper it sounds dumb, and in Hills of Ice Part 2 it's done so poorly, and even Wes Craven hates that movie. And I know I've said it's got a fun quality to it, but Hills of Ice Part 2 does have an insane amount of problems with it. We'll get to that one later down, actually way later down the road, because that movie came out forever after this movie. But in this movie, it looks silly on paper, but it's done very, very well to where it doesn't bother me. And it honestly never stuck out. If I would have never watched Hills of Ice Part 2 to where it made me think about, like, oh, this dog's having flashbacks, and it's still young, and it's still, like, running around and killing people. It's like, okay, well, in the first movie he was going around killing people, but it's not even half as stupid as it is in the second one. But yeah, I don't mind the idea of this dog going around and honestly getting most of the kills. The family in this movie really only kills a couple of the cannibals. There's even some survivor cannibals in this movie. So there definitely was a lot of room for a sequel. And I feel like it could have been a good franchise. I really do. It's got a lot of ideas that they still haven't really done with Hills of Ice that they could still do. And I'm surprised there's not a big, giant franchise. But I think both Part 2s didn't do well money-wise, so that's probably what it is too. But yeah, I love a lot of aspects. First of all, I love the setting. The idea of it being in the desert, the way that Wes Craven shoots it, using very little lighting. The only lighting that you get is around the RV. Everything around the RV is pitch black. And I love how Wes Craven lit this movie. It's such a well shot, well filmed movie. It looks so good. So that's the first thing I want to say is the setting, the atmosphere of the desert at night. And even during the day, it can be a little bit creepy, but at night especially, the way that they just didn't light everything, it's very dark and very creepy. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the fact that it was a story that was very unique, family versus family. And at the end, you truly are kind of wondering, like, okay, what are they going to do? They don't have any ammo. They got no food. They got no jobs. Their pets' heads are being pulled off. Sorry, I had to. But, yeah, they have, like, no supplies. And they got to figure out how they're going to get through the night. And honestly, as an audience watching it, someone that's watching it, a viewer, you yourself are wondering, like, okay, if I was in that situation, what would I do? Because these, hillbilly, not really hillbilly, but these people up in the hills, inbred cannibal people, they know survival techniques. They know how to barrage and, okay, you go this way, and while you're distracting them over there, I'll move into the RV. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. They're very, very smart. And it's extremely creepy. And I do think both movies, this and the remake, are very effective at making the group creepy. Just the way that some of them have these really sharp teeth and crazy looking eyes. One of them, I think it might be Papa Jupiter, has a split down his face. And it's just really gnarly looking. A lot of the makeup I thought looked pretty good. I also enjoyed the music. It wasn't... I don't know if it's really as noticeable as Last House on the Left, but I still enjoyed the music they had there. Thought the score really served the movie well. Of course, once again, directed by Wes Craven extremely well. I can't even think of movies that he's directed poorly. So, which then again, I haven't seen all of his movies, and even though this is a tribute stream, I am going to be honest with criticism and everything like that. But from all the movies I've seen, it was never like bad direction by Wes Craven or anything like that. And I think, yeah, the cast does a pretty decent job. There may be a few times where the acting can be a bit, maybe even the dubbing. There's times where I was actually watching this movie this time. I was wearing headphones, and so I could really hear the audio good, and I could tell they were dubbing in lines and stuff mid-sentence. Almost like it was ADR, but in the middle of a sentence. And some of the actors do deliver lines, but don't get all the line out. And I've noticed that as well. So, not a big problem for me. I don't really care about that. To me, I really don't go into horror movies for, stellar, amazing, spectacular acting. As long as everything else is done well in the movie, I could care less about like if the acting's good or not. I've seen movies with terrible acting that I think is fine, Technically, The Evil Dead has pretty bad acting. Technically. But I don't even care. To me, it doesn't bother me. I don't consider it bad acting, but a lot of people on a technical scale would say it's bad acting. For me, I didn't mind the performances in this movie. Doug in this movie is a bit different than how he is. Martin Spear as Doug. He's a bit different than how he is in the remake. I enjoy both versions here. The family was okay. I really enjoyed Dee Wallace. Her sister was a decent character. The brother is an okay character. The mom and dad, I don't really care about their characters. The mom was annoying. The dad was also annoying and just didn't like them. Didn't like the parents. They were just really annoying. Definitely better in the remake, I must say. But, yeah, it's a very well written movie. It's got good suspense. I love the fact that even though it's not technically as gory as the remake, it's still hard to watch. It's still got some very powerful scenes. I mean, the RV scene where the cannibals are taking over the RV, that's a very effective and powerful scene. I mean, when Dee Wallace gets shot, boom, boom, it's gut-wrenching. It's really effective. And the rape scene is not graphic. It's mainly hinted at. They don't really show anything. The remake definitely goes more into the rape stuff. But yeah, it's a very effective scene. The ending of, just like I said, them booby trapping the RV, an explosion happening, that was very well filmed and well done, practical. And I'd imagine very difficult to pull off because they're in the middle of nowhere doing a real explosion, and I bet that wasn't fun to film at all. But yeah, basically the family fighting back. The third act thought was pretty decent. Overall, I think The Hills of Eyes is definitely up there with Hills of Eyes. Yeah, The Hills of Eyes up there. The Hills of Eyes. Technically, it is because I think it's up there with the remake. I think this and the remake both work. But I meant to say it's up there with Last House on the Left as far as just the respect I have for it. It's still one of my favorite Wes Craven movies, and yeah. I overall really, really enjoy Hills of Eyes. One of my favorites. But anyways, out of 5, I'm going to give Hills of Eyes a 4 out of 5. To me, a lot of things work well in this movie. It's not boring. It's not slow pace. And, yeah, just a classic. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. But anyways, y'all, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. And, yeah, comment down below your guys' thoughts on this movie. I will also be leaving a link to my Letterboxd and Instagram in the description below. So if you guys want to follow me on there, you guys can. But anyways, that's going to do it for this review tonight, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. And the Explorer of Horror is out. Peace.